If I were to describe FGT, it has to be a journey. It has been a long journey, it has been a good journey. That describes very well FGT.
I think when we first started, the average attendance on a Sunday service was only 5 people. So for 5 people, it's quite simple. We met in a house as a regular place. For 6 months we were there. But of course, the house has its own limitations when we think of growing the church, and wanted to have an office as well outside the house, somewhere where people could feel more comfortable to visit me, and the place for a bit more business-like. Within 6 months, we moved to a shop lot that we rented, second floor. Why second floor? It's cheaper. We were trying to keep costs low in the initial years.
I think finance was one of the struggles that we had to face as a family, and also in the church. We were away from home and family, and there was no support, so we had to do things ourselves, and financially it was difficult also for the church. I had to come to a place where I had to acknowledge that I cannot do it anymore, and God, you have to do it. I gave up the struggle of making things work with what we have, and gave it up to God, and God took over, and we began to see things change, see things happen in our personal lives and also in the church.
We grew up in a very small church, so I can say that it's very cozy. It's a family feel. I remember during our youth days after YF, we would actually walk all the way from Tem Yang to Terminal 1 to grab a bus to go home. So that was kind of desire we had.
I was determined and I kept at it, was because I have a sense of calling, that God had called me there. I had to answer a question I felt God asked me, which was, if I were to be in Seremban and to serve my whole life there, and even if the church doesn't grow, would I be happy if that was what God wanted me to do, just to be there and be obedient? And I had to answer this question myself, and I said, Lord, I think if obedience is the most important. It's not having the greatest result, because in the end, God knows best, and everything we do for Him, it has to fit into His plans.
When I came, I was seeking God because I was going through some problems. I felt when I was worshiping in the church, I had peace from God. So that was why I stay on.
The first word that came to my mind is family.
This church is like a family to us.
Whether it's in good times or bad times, the church family is always there. So we're never alone. Whatever we go through, the church family goes through it with us.
It makes me feel comfortable that I can actually be myself.
We grew up in Seremban, but we are not from Seremban, so church was our family.
I came from a non-believer background. I don't really know what is love. Actually, I learned hard from church. That changed my perspective as well by giving love to people.
When we had our first son, Ivan, it was a very new experience, and also very challenging for us. Yeah, a lot of things that we did not know and didn't know how to cope. So at times in church, it was a real struggle. But I was very thankful that many in church came, and they offered a lot of help and support and advice. So both our boys have grown up to be very close to the church members, the gogo tetes and the uncle aunties, and I think this has really helped them in their development as children and later on as adults.
因为我觉得他是召集门徒给我们很 strong 的在foundation 里面，然后他是传福音，因为他们的FGT 教会里面是叫我们使万人成为耶稣的门徒，然后我觉得装备就是使到我们能有很好的一个装备，然后家就是因为这边的弟兄姐妹非常的好啊，使到我感觉到有爱。
I married here, and I have my 3 children here, born in FGT, and they're growing up here very well. And I've known so many friends through FGT as well. Many people have been supporting me in many ways. It has come to the point that I just can't imagine without FGT. So it's already part of me, has become my family.
For the wedding preparation back in 2015, I can feel that the whole church is really working together to help us from A to Z. Through that, I feel that this is a church who can truly call home.
Growing up, people around me teaching me what's right, how to grow in God, especially because I think without them, without the leaders, people I've met in church, I wouldn't be who I am today. I would still be the rebel I was, or maybe I'd be even worse.
Now I remember how the church helped me to fit into Seremban. Being a houseman, we have long hours. But I remember Pastor Voon, it was just the first few days of life in Seremban where Pastor Voon already invited me to, for lunch, to have beef noodle, in Seremban. And many times he hosted me for, in his house, over for meals, for dinner, for lunch. And I very much appreciate those times. I would say the transitioning into being a pastor of FGT Seremban was pretty smooth. I really appreciate the support from the church especially. I would say that I thank God. I was just very grateful that the people were willing to accept me as their pastor.
When I came to this church, I was a very different person. And as like any other home, it helps you to grow. So that's how I really felt it. And I know that I'm a different person as compared to the person I am in 2013.
The most important thing that I've learned is the Word. Without the foundation of the Word, you'll be depending on man. The first meeting in FGT Seremban is the Word, and it's a Word that gave me a very strong foundation to continue my journey as a pastor in FGT Johor Bahru.
Now, I learned a lot from Pastor Voon. As I look at his life, I'm truly inspired by the way he lived his life in obedience to God's calling. Many times when I hear stories of how he would relocate his family back in 1990, where he knew nobody in Seremban, but he relocated, he obeyed the Lord. It was very tough, but he took the step of faith. And I admire his tenacity, his grit to go through all these 30 years. And I would say that that kind of inspired me to sacrifice for the Lord, to make a stand for God. The thing that he did in FGT Seremban impacted many lives. It has changed and transformed many lives here, the people here.
I think the call to missions is very strong. I believe that even looking at the lives of my parents, they have left a legacy of church planting, and this has spurred me on to even do greater works in the Lord.
Now we're already starting a lot of community works, but we want to do more, and we hope that through this church building, we'll be able to transform the whole community in Seremban and the neighboring communities. Not only that, but to go beyond to other nations as well.
Very excited to see the church building coming up because it's a fulfillment of what God has for FGT Seremban, and it will be a real time of celebration. People will be gathering. Those from far and wide will be coming and to celebrate with us. To see the building up and the people coming to worship God in that building, that will be it, Kevin.
I can say that the Lord leads us one step at a time.
God has been very faithful, and I know He's going to do great and mighty things in this church in many more years to come.
If I have to do it again, I think I would still do it.
Glad that I'm part of the FGT group.
I love this church very much. Yeah, I'll never go other church.